everybody, it's Richard, and I'm back, and it's time.
Episode 206 of Radio Free Innsmouth. I told you all last week in the little text part that nobody reads at the end of the episode that we were going to be covering a really weird fucking band this week. I warned you. Also, this band, they're from the Netherlands. They're Dutch.
There are only two things I can't stand in this world. People who are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch.
What?
So when you think of heavy metal and you think of the Dutch, what do you think of? Probably the first thing that springs to mind is all the death metal they got there. Most notably for me, at least, Aspid, who are one of my favorite death metal bands of all time, but also Pestilence and Gorefest, who I've both, I covered both of them on the show before. Even to some of like the lesser known, wackier bands like Perpetual Demise and Polluted Inheritance, they got great death metal. In fact, and this is going to surprise some of you, the Netherlands is probably my favorite country for death metal as a whole. It's not Sweden, even though I have an unfortunate, borderline disturbing sexual fetish for the chainsaw guitar tone. Obviously, that's wonderful stuff aesthetically, but when it comes to straight-up death metal songwriting, nothing quite beats a nice Aspid album. So they got a lot of death metal, and they have a lot of, like, weird black metal, like Countess that I already covered on this show. Actually, that was the first episode of this that had, like, wacky video editing things going on in it. Or Urfaust, who I probably should cover someday. But, I mean, the Netherlands, it's located in Western Europe. It's a pretty fucking developed country. It makes sense that they would have metal history going way back to, like, the 70s and 80s. And there was sort of, like, a distinctive Dutch metal style in the 80s that doesn't really get talked about that much anymore. I briefly touched on it in episode, 78, like 2 years ago, where I talked about the band Mandator, but there's a little bit more to it than just Mandator. A lot of it was like less thrashy and more kind of weird power metal-y. A good example of the style that I'm talking about here would be the band Defender that only ever did demos and EPs, unfortunately, but man, this was good stuff. A considerably darker take on power metal aesthetics than what the Germans were doing at the same time.
Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
With quite a bit of like crunchy thrash metal influence and an interesting melodic sense where the vocals kind of introduce the melody and then those little harmonized guitar bits kind of do a response to it. See right here, vocal melody, guitar response. Interesting stuff. Big emphasis on progressive revelation, like this one right here.
Fucking metal as fuck, dude.
Big epic thrash metal turnarounds, almost like a weird breakdown in how they're structured. And some awesome ball squeezer vocals. Because it's classic 80s heavy metal, and that's what happens. But wait!
You might ask.
I thought the band you were covering this week was supposed to be really fucking weird.
아니 촬영했던 거 하다 보면은
Exactly. The only weird thing about fucking Defender is that they aren't more well known. I mean, that's just classic 80s heavy metal. Not really weird at all. But,
Okay, here's the thing.
the only way you're going to get access to any Defender material in a physical media storage format nowadays is through the oddly named Rusty Cage Records. Oddly named because, Rusty Cage, it's freaking Soundgarden and all the Yarling, all that 90s shit. But all this label does is put out like old school Dutch heavy metal on this Dutch Metal Classics sub-label. And on that Rusty Cage Records Dutch Metal Classics sub-label, not only will you find Defender, you will also find a demo compilation for another band that is in fact very strange, and it is in fact the band we are going to be covering this week. The name of that band is Jewel.
I know what you're thinking.
Isn't that like the girl pop singer from the 90s? Yes, it is. You figured it out. That's what this episode's about. No!
Yeah, bitch, what the fuck you gonna do about it? Cunt. You fucking cunt.
This is Metal World. The band Jewel started in like 1982 as the band Sword before they changed their name to Jewel. Probably because there's a bunch of band named Sword. Okay, we're in Metal Land. Terror Squad isn't like some weird rap group of a couple of fat niggas. It's a goddamn Japanese thrash metal band that sounds awesome. Okay, we're talking about the metal band Jewel, who are incredibly strange, not the least because, like, their demo, the cover of it makes no sense. It looks like Charlie Benante's trying to eat my fucking face. What the hell is that about? But more importantly, they're weird because musically, this shit is basically if Vector decided to play sleaze metal, alright? It's bizarre. It's like goofy 80s good times party metal if the guitars were being handled by a technicality-crazed progressive thrash metal band or something. It's bizarre. The vocals are all over the place because they have to be, given how bizarre and complex these guitar riffs are. It really is like progressive hair metal. It's very odd. Wicked sense of humor, too. Like, they're doing everything in like this weird jokey manner, but they're so good at their instruments that they actually sell it. I love how sharp the guitar tone is and how he hits all these artificial harmonics. And odd little chuggy rhythmic fills like that one. The vocals obviously aren't very traditional sounding, but they are very soulful, and I enjoy them quite a bit. They fit the music, and that's all that really matters. The songs have like a whole bunch of weird turnarounds, odd structures to them. Like that weird jugga 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 jugga. You can put anything after that, and they do. But like this stop-start stuff, this is almost a Twisted Sister riff. But the guitar playing is so tight and just crazy and weird that it becomes kind of its own thing. It really is almost like a Watchtower take on like goofy melodic 80s heavy metal. With lots of cool like neoclassical layered melodic guitar lines. That bass is no slouch either. He's walking all up and down the neck. I'm having a hard time of thinking of anything that this sounds like from the same time period.
제가 V앱을 너무 안 한다고.
Okay, well there is one thing. But to get into what that is, we're going to have to look a little bit more closely at those weird guitar riffs. Okay, keep in mind, this demo, what you're hearing right now, not only is it incredibly well produced for like a very low budget demo, but this also was recorded in 1988. Now there's only one other scene of music that was doing these kind of weird technical stop-starty riffs in a melodic heavy metal context at the time, and it's one of my favorite scenes. You know what it is.
Oh, it's that time of year again, folks.
That, of course, being the nascent visual kei scene in Japan. Particularly in the late 80s with bands like Seiki Matsu and what you're listening to right now. Ex-Japan, dude. See, they're doing this like goofy party heavy metal stuff, but there's all these like weird stops and starts and oddly technical guitar riffs. And this is what Jewel sounds like to me. I don't know if Jewel was into this stuff at all, if the Jewel guys were big on the Japanese stuff, but that's what I'm hearing. I don't know. More likely it's just a case of convergent evolution, you know. The Jewel guys over in the Netherlands were feeling the same sort of vibes as the face paint and weird hair brigade from Japan, leading to similar results with this like very odd technical take on a weird combination of speed metal and pop metal. I don't know. Whatever happened, I like it. I'm glad it happened. Then again, I wouldn't be surprised if these guys were actually into all that wacky Japanese shit, just because if you look at their live sets back in the days, these guys were into all sorts of weird music, taking a lot of just like odd pop stuff and running it through this like cheese grater made out of Mekong Delta's guitar warm-up exercises. For instance, this is a soundboard live recording from the 80s, just proving that they could pull this shit off live. But what they're doing here is they're covering a pretty well-known and fairly mainstream sort of boomer rock song. I want to see if any of you can figure out what the hell song it is that they're covering here. Because when you figure it out, it's going to blow your mind. Right now, it just sounds like an original bit of speed metal from these guys. But once the lyrics kick in and like the vocal melody comes in, you might start to hear some stuff that you recognize from FM rock radio. Huh? Did you figure it out yet?
그러니까 엄마 아빠가 그거를 해주면 이게 하드랜드는.
That's right, the Rolling Stones, friggin' Sympathy for the Devil. See, there's the chorus. Now you can tell what song it is. But the guitar parts are so fucking bizarre that it literally just sounds like any other Jewel original. And look what they did with the woo-woo parts. Now they got this guy doing like weird death growls as backing vocals. It's so fucking cool. I mean, normally you're like, okay, goofy fucking metal novelty cover. It's gonna be like that Barbara Ann crap Blind Guardian did. No, these guys were experts at taking like old pop songs and turning them into speed metal masterpieces. And that continued after their 80s demo days, well into the 90s when they finally got a full-length album out in 1991. Check this shit out. This song's a little bit easier to figure out what the hell old standard that they're covering this time.
Yeah, shit! Where the fuck are my boots?
I'm sorry I swore. I make this video not for kids.
I know what you're thinking.
I mean, yeah, Megadeth already covered These Boots Are Made for Walking way back on their first album, but honestly, I think Jewel do a much better job of making the song their own. This is actually one of the standouts on the album for me. Guitar playing is just all over the place with these like weird techniques, lots of artificial harmonics, as I mentioned earlier, weird string bends, putting these like odd thrash metal chuggy parts like in the middle of riffs. It's just so like bent up and weird and fucked up sounding. It's great. But yeah, there's the chorus. They've added all like extra guitar parts to it. This part's fucking cool. Check this shit out.
Are you ready, Boots?
12-bar blues as reinterpreted by 80s metal psychopaths. Delightful. But that's not all that they're capable of, this Jewel band, you know, just doing these like crazy covers and reimaginings of old songs. They've got plenty of their own unique originals. My personal favorite on the album being the very moody Circle of Despair. The whole song is based around this like really odd cadence. This strange stop-start guitar riff with a lot of string bends in it that they can then add in all these like weird little chugging parts and artificial harmonics and sub-melodies. Because of the way the riff is structured, it has all this negative space to it. You can put stuff in it. Like this cool little lead guitar line right here with the Eye of the Tiger bass line under it.
Women, we can lay.
How's that for musical maturity? We've gone from a tech thrash band playing party heavy metal to a tech thrash band playing The Police or something. I like it though. I love how this clean guitar thing, it still fits in with that weird stop-starty riff that introduces the song. And it goes back into metal, of course. This part hits fucking hard. It's all been based around this like same guitar figure. They're just putting it through so many different variations, doing all this weird stuff with it. It makes for a very interesting song that seems very simple on the outset, but reveals its complexity over time. I told you there was a good bass player in this band. This is like a really weird version of Iron Maiden almost, but it's doing this like odd 80s new wave thing with the super folky thin lazy guitars. There's so much shit going on. It's such a cool song. Getting into darker thrash metal territory, but it's still that same riff from earlier. Overall, I would say one of the greatest and most undersung heavy metal songs of the 1990s. I wish there was more stuff like this, but you can really only get it on this Jewel album, which of course is known as Revolution in Heaven. The CD will run you like $1 bajillion on fucking Discogs nowadays, so don't even try, but apparently there was like a nice vinyl reissue recently. And it's not even just all like weird fucking progs, progressive, whatever the hell that song was on this album. There's plenty of like old school style speed metal as well.
Lasting glory.
Is there anything more emblematic of the essence of heavy metal than a bunch of Europeans yelling "Blasting Glory, Destroy" over and over? Because I don't think so. This is like a total power metal bit right here. This is about as close as they get to Halloween, maybe? And like every right-thinking person, I love 80s, you know, Michael Kiske Halloween, but this stuff has a lot more intensity to it. I feel like if this album had been put out on a bigger label and more people knew about it, this would be like one of those unassailable metal classics. Maybe like 90s Netherlands in the middle of the death metal boom just wasn't the place to try and sell this kind of material. But damn, does this album ever hit fucking hard with this like epic power metal too. Vocals on this part are great. Like the backing vocals take over as like the lead line. And then what was the lead vocals is now sort of commenting over this like shouted chorus. really interesting stuff going on structurally in this song and honestly through the whole album. I don't even want to spoil any more songs from it. Listen, go out and get this album if you can, or at least listen to the fucking thing on YouTube. I'm sure it's up there. I mean, that's where I first heard it like a billion years ago. One of my friends was like, hey dude, you need to check this out. This is fucking amazing. And I was like, Jewel, what the fuck is this? And then he put it on and it's like, oh my god. Hopefully you feel the same way, or at least you enjoyed watching this episode. Thank you for doing so, and I'll see you next time around.
And I can't go on anywhere today either, because there's a shit ton of snow. I'm sorry I swore, but there's a shit ton of snow out there.